Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to High Top Sports Oregon. I'm Cody the Professor. We got Derek the Duck. And today we are previewing the Ducks versus an Illini um, football game coming up Saturday. But first, our video is sponsored by BetUS. Go ahead, check them out at betus.com. We'll do a little bit of gambling in the middle of this thing and do what we always do. Obviously we didn't hit them on the last video, but that's okay because right now with BetUS, you get 150% back using the code YouTube150. That's 150% back on your first deposit, and then another 125% back on your second deposit using the code YouTube150 up to $2,000. So let's go ahead, check out what we got today. We're talking Oregon Ducks, the keys on the offense, what they are going to have to do to stifle this Illini defense. Listen, I know people are rolling their eyes right now. They're like, it's Illinois. Like, how good can they be? Well, they have take a massive step up in the program. They are a lot better, and this is a team that you should beat. We talked about it in our post game synopsis last week that to become an elite team, you have to dominate these teams, and this is a team that could very well sneak up, sucker punch you. Then you're down by 7. And the clock is ticking away, and they're just running the ball down your throat.
Yeah, this and Illinois, they're kind of one of those dangerous teams in the sense of they don't have a particular unit on their team that they do something exceptionally well, right? I mean, the quarterback play, I wouldn't say it's exceptional. The run game, the pass game, anything in the defense really. But what they do, and the reason that you can't overlook a team like Illinois is they do everything soundly. They're not a team that tends to shoot themselves in the foot very frequently. You kind of just go back and take a look at what they've been able to do thus far to this point in the season, and there's not a whole lot of turnovers that are happening. Like I said, you're not seeing a ton of big plays. You're not going to see him throw for 500 yards, and you're not going to see these rush games for 300 yards and 6 score. It's just that's not who they are as an identity on their offense. But they do everything well, offensively, defensively, special teams is sound. So it's just kind of one of those teams where you can't overlook them. If you just going by and you're checking out the Vegas lines and you're seeing Oregon minus 20, right offhand, you might be like, oh, this should be a cakewalk, which there is that possibility, right? I mean, there is that possibility when you have a team who doesn't do something exceptionally well. I mean, there's always that chance that that's one of those games where you're able to light up the scoreboard, everything goes in your favor. But at the same time, it's like you have to be mindful of who's coming in here, and it's still a ranked matchup that's happening on Saturday,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I think a lot of people kind of like you said, they see the name of it, you see Illinois, and you don't necessarily think football powerhouse, but they are a team that you do have to be, careful with who you're playing. And this week in particular, it could be a tough matchup for the Ducks. I like where they stand, but it's all up to does Illinois shoot themselves in the foot? Are they turning the ball over? We're gonna find out on Saturday.
Yeah, and obviously they have a quarterback there that is, I mean, he's not elite, but he can definitely win them games. They like going to the big tight end, on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, leaking out in the seam route in the end zone. They like going to him, tip, and they have a couple running backs. They share the load. They have a couple wide receivers, and they share the load. They do have one I guess top tier guy. He's nothing like some of the others. He's not a superstar, but he has scored 7 touchdowns. He's got like 490 yards and 30 catches. But you look down the list, and it's a lot of 400-yard guys with 5, 4, 3, 5 touchdowns. So they can get it done with a wealth of guys, and that I almost think that's more trickier than trying to lock down one solo guy bracketing. Because they all make catches when they need to. The running backs do well. Offensive line is very good in the run game. They love getting to the second level, kind of blowing those linebackers off the edge. But let's go ahead. Let's really get into this Oregon offense, the keys of what they need to do against this defense. Now, Dylan Gabriel, he's just got to be efficient as always. Keep that Will Stein offense moving. And you don't have to score 100 points to beat this team. You got to soak up the time of possession. That is the biggest thing, is that time of possession and no turnovers. Because if you let them start winning the time of possession battle, you look up and it's 7-14, and then they get a light drive together. and then they kick a field goal with a minute and a half left, and you're standing there wondering why this game slipped away from you. Then you have Trayshawn Holden back from a little bit of a problem. He got in a little bit of trouble, a little in-house punishment, got grounded for a week. He's just got to keep the chains moving, find that soft, easy area and zone. That's going to be a big thing. They're going to play a lot of zone and be a different maker to open up the other assets. And then Evan Stewart. You got to get him going early again, often, like they did last week. They got him going early and often in the first drive. You can't go MIA, and you have to find those soft spots in the zone coverage. Keep the chains moving. If you can keep the chains moving, you can beat this team no problem.
100%. And I think this game in particular is a wonderful opportunity for Dylan Gabriel to really establish his Heisman campaign. I understand, what he was able to do against Ohio State. That's kind of one that really put him on the map for a lot of people nationally, just because it was a nationally televised game, one of the biggest games of the year. But in a team like Illinois, where they play that prototypical Big Ten defense, we're going to figure out exactly if Oregon is built for it, right? Like when I think of Illinois, I think of that prototypical Big Ten offense and defense, both sides of the ball. Kind of
Yep.
like you mentioned on third and fourth down, those short yardage situations. They love using multiple tight end packages. They love getting the hands into their big guy, and that's just like that screams Big Ten football.
Yeah.
Same thing with like their run game. Like kind of like you alluded to, they don't necessarily have one guy who's just going to be an all-world burner, an all-American type guy, but they do have a lot of guys in that room who are formidable and can make something happen. Um, as for Dylan Gabriel, though, it's like to this point, he's thrown at least 2+ touchdowns in every game he's suited up for in his Ducks career. So, I like that streak to continue this week. In Illinois, like kind of like I alluded to earlier on in the show, they don't have a phenomenal defense. They have a sound defense. That this is not me sitting here bashing them, but they will present opportunities for the big play. And that's kind of why when you messaged me and we're looking for some key players this week, I picked 2 wide receivers, neither of which were Tez Johnson, for a reason, right? Tez is going to get his opportunities. We understand that, but I'm kind of looking for the people who have an opportunity to make a splash that people might not necessarily be thinking about right off the bat. Evan Stewart's one where he's really come on since the Ohio State game. I think he's averaging over 15 yards per reception to this point, so he does have that big play ability. And where he's going to get his chances here in his own defense that Illinois likes to play. There's a lot of the defensive focus tends to be on Tez in the run game for obvious reasons. He's going to get his. And then, at that, kind of like we mentioned, Trayshawn Holden's returning from a slight in-house suspension. And that just further deepens that wide receiver room. He's currently sitting at third on our team in receptions, averaging also over 15 yards per reception with over 20 receptions on the season. So he's another one of those guys who has that big playability. And I think this Oregon offense, they're going to try to blow the game open with some of these big plays because they do have the players to do so. And there is a skill gap between, what Illinois is able to offer in their secondary and what Oregon's able to tote out there in their wide receiver room.
For sure, for sure. Let's go ahead. Let's check out our fine sponsors, BetUS, real fast for our bets of the week. Let's go ahead. I kind of like this Washington Indiana game. Now, first with BetUS right now using the code YouTube 150, you get 150% back on your first deposit. You get 125% back on your second deposit, up to $2,000 with the code YouTube 150. Washington, Indiana. Indiana is on a 6-0 burner right now. This is the first time ever in school history, I believe, that they've ever done that. Kurt Signetti is just doing what he's done at every single stop. James Madison, and then the D3 school before that, and he's building a powerhouse. And everybody's like, oh, it's IU. This is going to be a test. Well, Washington hasn't been all that great, right? They've showed up some games, then they get blown out the next. I think Jed Fitch is kind of not having the roster that he thought he was gonna have. Obviously a lot of those guys left, went to Bama, so it's one of those things. We have +6 for Washington and -6, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and pound the under of 54.5. What do you think, Derek?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a game very near and dear to my heart. I would absolutely love to see Husky Tears on Saturday. I actually thrive off of that. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see. Indiana, this is not your prototypical Indiana team. They are extremely so. Like when we talk about Illinois, not having necessarily a group that you look at and you think, wow, that is one of the best cores in the country in any position. I don't think Indiana has one of those. But what they do have is they really have a team that does not shoot themselves in the foot. They understand exactly who their offensive identity is, exactly who they are on defense, and exactly how to win those games. Their head coach is an absolute monster, and I really love the energy he brings to that program. It is a little Dan Lanning esque and just kind of that confidence he tends to exude, and I love it. The players love it.
It's almost like an older Kiffin, almost.
Yeah.
So the media, obviously, I'm in IU country here, and the media asked him when he first got there, "How are you going to sell IU to transfers and stuff like that?" And he says, "Quote, Google me. I've won every single place I've ever been. I'm a winner. You can go ahead and just tell them to Google me." And that's it. Mic drop. I mean, this guy is and people were wondering, like, IU's been terrible for a long time. They're a basketball school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, watch out because they are going to be a problem. And this is year one. I can't imagine when they start getting players, year 2, 3, and 4, what they're going to be like because this guy's a winner. I'm definitely taking the money line Indiana plus the under. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game, but we will see. I also wanted for sure. Now Illinois does have. I think they got one pretty good DB. I think he's pretty highly touted. He's going to be, I would guess, on Tez all day, kind of manned up. They're going to bracket him. But I'm going to tell you, if you're an Oregon running back, make sure you eat a good breakfast. Bring your lunch pail because it's going to be tough sledding. I will be shocked if you guys have over 150 yards in rushing. Coach, the Illinois coach was a Wisconsin coach for a long time, known for great defenses. Eric Bieniemy, and he's a seasoned Big Ten coach. They're going to play seasoned Big Ten brand of ball, which is going to be try to get the clock in their favor in that time of possession. And my worry almost is if you start scoring too early, they can definitely flip the script with that time of possession. It's great to score, I get that, but you do not want your defense on the field, 35, 40 minutes because they will wear down eventually, and then Illinois will take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of walking that fine line, like you said, just between wanting to score early and often, which is, it's never a bad thing. I'm never going to turn down a one play drive where you just go out there and drop a quick hammer on them. Um, but it's you can't really lean on that. In Illinois, they're just like I said, they're just so sound, and that's my thing. Like I don't want people to look past them because they're an Illinois team. Like don't get me wrong. When you kind of look back at them, they gave up 49 points to Purdue at home. Purdue's offense is they're awful. Let's just call it what it is. And they allowed 49 points too. So it's like, they have those, but then they have a game like they played against Michigan, who is pretty sound where, mind you, Michigan, they can't throw a forward pass to save their ass. So, I mean, that's a whole different argument itself. But to be fair, they did hold the defending national champions to 7 points. So it's like, it's all which Illinois team shows up. I have a feeling they're going to be hungry and ready to go. Brett Bielema, he did give the University of Oregon one of the Rose Bowls, so we appreciate him for that. Definitely look forward to giving us another ranked win on Saturday.
For sure. Let's go ahead check out the defense. What the defense needs to do to stop this attack on offense. And Devin Jackson, he's got to shut down the tight end, especially when he kind of leaks out into that seam route. That's going to probably be his assignment with the run, or with that tight end leaking out. He's going to probably end up covering him with his speed. I don't see that being a big issue. But here's the biggest thing with him: do not get caught up in the scrum, because this offensive line loves to get to the second level and just scrum it up, and then next thing you know, they bounce it outside for 15 or 20. You got to shed the blocks when the O-line does make it to the second level. Him being super athletic and speedy, he's a tick undersized, and some of these Illinois offensive linemen are just big men, and so he's got to shed the block, use the speed, and and make sure he's living in those cutback lanes. And then obviously Mateo, he's just got to keep doing what he's been doing ever since the injury um, to the starting guy. Keep the pressure up on Illinois' quarterback. He will throw interceptions if you can just keep that pressure up. You do not have to sack him a bunch of times. Just get the hands up, get him in the face. He will also throw a lot of batted balls. Make sure you're doing that, and again, fill in to those cutback lanes on the run game. They like to cut it back and work those easy holes because those offensive linemen are so good. Maybe one hole gets stopped up. There's always another one, and then Nico Reed. Watch out for the tight end again coming across the seam. That's going to be a big thing if they can shut him down for those 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. Now you're starting to flip the script on the ball and then step up in the run game.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we were taking a look at some of our key players here, I was really, just kind of looking at Illinois film. It's apparent that we're going to need someone at all three levels. Obviously, that makes sense with Jordan Birch's injury, something that he's been dealing with for a couple of weeks now. Mateo, who has been absolutely phenomenal throughout the course of the entire year. He's recorded at least half a sack every game since UCLA. So he has been, a very consistent force on that defensive line and really stepping into his own as a true sophomore. When he signed with Oregon as a 5-star defensive lineman, you kind of have expectations as to what he's going to turn into, especially at a premium position like that. And he's absolutely done so to this point. I think it's just another wonderful opportunity for him to show not even the university, but the nation that he is that caliber of a player in his second year. So I think Mateo is going to have another big game. Kind of like you alluded to, Illinois, they do have a good offensive line. I wouldn't call it great per se, but it's very sound.
Yep.
And I'm very curious to see how Mateo kind of navigates that when you're playing an offensive line who doesn't tend to make a lot of mistakes. They're able to pull a lot of stunts on the line. I'm gonna just kind of see how he's able to deal with that. And then, one of your personal favorites, Devin Jackson. I
Love
know
that
that's
kid.
one that I know that's one you really like. And I thought about you a little bit when I was picking my players for the week. Um, but kind of like you were mentioning too, Illinois' offense, they run a unique offense. It's not and I say unique in the sense that it's not something that people who watch Oregon are consistently used to seeing. We haven't seen a whole lot of offenses that are this, I'll call it traditional. I get Big Ten traditional is the best way I could put it. But with that being said, I think when you have a position like that linebacking core, it's going to become even more so important when you do have these big athletic tight ends who are used to having the balls in their hands, who also double down as great run blockers. Illinois' tight ends are, they are phenomenal in both aspects of that, and that's going to make Devin Jackson's job even much more important. He is definitely the type of player who can make his presence felt in the run game and the pass game, which is why I think he's going to be a major key to this defense. Is to, how he plays is probably going to determine how well that Oregon defense as a whole plays. That linebacking core is massively important, and that's the same for Bryce Betcher and Jeff Bassa and Tatum Tuioti. So it's that linebacking core in itself. And then the last one, Nico Reed, we were talking about that nickel position. It's like I got to throw Brandon Johnson in here too. Just that whole nickel room in itself. I think it's going to be massive once again for the very same reason that I think Devin Jackson's going to have his work cut out for him. They're going to be assigned to doing a lot in their hybrid role, and especially someone like Brandon Johnson, who he thrives even more so in the run game. I'm excited to see him be able to crash the box a little bit and make his presence felt there. And then Nico Reed's been extremely solid in the pass game and the run game as well. So that's probably been our most consistent room. I'm excited to see what they're able to do against a more prototypical Big Ten team.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for our preview. We will have a post-view show for the Illinois game. Going to be a good one, good test. Gotta win this game. This is the games we're talking about. You can't just win the big one against Ohio State and rubber stamp it for the rest of the year. You got to play these games, and it's going to be a tough one. And the schedule, it looks like, is going to start heating up a little bit. And then possibly, you're going to play some tough teams in the playoffs. So super excited. But I am Cody the Professor with High Top Sports Oregon. We got Derek the Duck, and we will see you later.